Hey guys, today I'm going to walk you through diagnosing a typical gas water heater and replacing the thermocouple and, if needed, the main gas valve. This is an informational video only. Do not attempt anything you see here unless you're a professional and know exactly what you're doing. With that said, here's my story. About a year ago, November 2nd, 2020 to be exact, I had replaced my 1994 unit as it had failed completely. I live in a rental house, but my landlord is an elderly couple who appreciate the fact that I do all the maintenance work and simply deduct the cost of the materials from my rent, which is quite reasonable, by the way. When my water heater failed, they purchased a Richmond unit from Menards, which is a home improvement store found mostly around the Midwestern US, so I proceeded to get rid of the old unit and install a new one. I took some pictures and video, but it really wasn't worth making a full video at that time. 1 year and 1 week later, here in November 2021, the unit stopped maintaining its pilot light. So my first step in diagnosis was to check the thermocouple. I'm not going to explain here how a thermocouple works. There are tons of other videos on YouTube on that topic. But let's just say that without a working thermocouple, the gas valve will not keep the pilot lit, and of course it won't even open the main gas burner in order to actually heat the water. So I did a little research, and using my multimeter, I measured an open circuit on the gas valve where the thermocouple connects. This means that no matter what voltage the thermocouple puts out, which is in the millivolt range by the way, the gas valve isn't going to react. So on to the next step, replacing the gas valve. I did get lucky because Menards does actually carry the gas valve and even the replacement thermocouple used in this particular unit that they sell. So a quick trip to my local Menards and I've got a new gas valve, and for good measure to make sure I've got the correct thermocouple, I purchased one of those as well. So the very first step is to shut off the gas valve feeding the water heater. There should be one located right near the unit. If not, you may have to hunt or you may have to shut the entire house off. That's beyond the scope of this video. We're going to assume you've got a gas valve right near the unit. Next, you're going to disconnect the thermocouple, the pilot light gas tube, the main burner gas tube. You're going to want to move these items a little bit out of the way, as you'll see later. Then you're going to carefully disconnect the gas inlet pipe, which should have a union on it like this here. I apologize for the camera angle there. You can't quite see me get the pipe wrench on the union, but when we go to put it back together a little later on, you'll see a little bit better view of that. Now the other thing we need to take off is this, because this needs to go on the new one. Now you'll notice this is at a bit of an angle. Now I did that because the old water heater, this sat lower. There's no problem with that. There's nothing saying it can't be at a little bit of an angle. It's not a gravity thing, as long as the water heater itself is level. Now before we remove the actual gas valve, we need to drain the tank. On this unit anyway, the gas valve is submerged into the water. So if you don't drain the tank, you're going to have one hell of a mess on your hands. If you're lucky, there's a cold water shutoff valve just before the water heater. If not, you may have to shut the water off to the entire house. Once the water is shut off, take a standard garden hose and connect it to the drain output. And make sure to run it outside on a downhill path the entire way. Now, if you're in a basement, you'll need some kind of extra steps and or equipment, which is beyond the scope of this video. Now, you'll notice I did make a mistake the first time here. I thought the easiest way would be to take my 100-foot hose reel and hook that up. Well, the problem here is that the hose itself wraps around several times and it's above the output of the water heater. Simple fluid dynamics will tell you that's not going to work. So I switched to my 50-foot straight hose and everything went a lot more smoothly. Now you can open up all the hot water valves around the house and that'll help because air has to come in as water comes out. What I found to work a lot more quickly was to simply disconnect both water lines on the top of the unit. This actually proved really handy later on as it freed me up to be able to move the entire unit around a little bit. You'll see later why that's important. Draining the tank may take a little while, so while this finishes draining, just for the sake of completeness here, I am going to go ahead and put the new thermocouple in there. It's been bent too many times, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I've already cracked these loose. These four, they're Torx T20 screws. And then this whole thing just lifts up. Just work it out. Now, a little bit of water on there, I believe, is normal. It currently pulls right out because I think I broke the little clip. This comes with a new one. So I'm going to straighten this out, because if you get this rubber gasket out, it's really hard to get it back in. Trust me, been there, done that. So try and pull it through without damaging the gasket. This we won't need. This is an adapter fitting for a different application. But this little guy here, let's see if we can focus in on that. This is the clip I want to replace. That little guy right there pushes right out. So there's the old one. We start by putting this little clip back into this, well, easier said than done. Trying to get it inside this hole with this in the way. Okay, now, I don't know how well you can see that. It's in there a little bit. Now it needs to push all the way in until it clicks. All the way in, like that. We have to go through this gasket first. Hold the back of this. Hold the back of this when you do this. Otherwise, you're going to push that whole gasket straight through and it is really difficult to get back into place. Now, okay, nice tight fit, and it's right where I think it needs to be. Not going to even bend any of this stuff until we've got the new gas valve in place. When it's completely drained, go ahead and disconnect your hose and close the drain valve. Now here's the fun part. You need to rotate the entire gas valve counterclockwise until it's free from the unit. It may be kind of difficult. Even on a 1-year-old unit, I had to grab the large pipe wrench and even move the whole unit somewhat, but eventually it came out. It helps if you have a little piece of gas pipe threaded into the inlet as a source of leverage. Notice the nasty looking black gunk on the portion that goes into the water tank. Most of this is part of the Sacrificial Anode, which is a rod usually made of magnesium whose entire purpose is to erode. Since magnesium erodes much more quickly than, say, iron, this prevents the rest of the tank from eroding, hence the name Sacrificial. This is also why you sometimes get a funny taste out of your hot water tap. As a little side note, before I installed the new gas valve, I went ahead and measured the resistance across the two wires where the thermocouple connects, and you'll notice it shows an extremely low resistance. This is what you need. Remember, the old one showed a completely open circuit. Now, this valve came with Teflon tape already applied. If not, go ahead and apply some Teflon tape to the threads. Later on, you'll see me doing that on a couple of other connections. Then take a towel and simply wipe out the threads inside the tank, because some of that magnesium may have gotten in there, and you want a clean threaded hole. And now you're going to very carefully thread the new valve in. You should get at least 2 or 3 full turns before it starts feeling tight. If not, you may be cross-threaded, so back it out and start over. So once everything is lined up, you're going to want to first take a wire brush and clean the threads of all the old Teflon tape. Put new Teflon tape on it. Now, before you go into the comments saying I'm using the wrong Teflon tape, I've done this 1,000 times. Teflon tape is Teflon tape. Now, once it's in place, give it a good snug and make sure you're lined up with your gas line. You'll notice in my particular case, the valve is at a slight angle. This is perfectly okay, and it's done because my old water heater, the original one, the gas valve was much lower to the ground. So rather than putting a bunch of little U-joints on there, I just kind of moved everything at a little bit of an angle. Doesn't hurt anything. I'm sure it looks funny, but it works just fine. So get that union nice and tight. Go ahead and connect the burner outlet, the gas pilot tube, the thermocouple, and finally, the electric igniter wire. Before we turn the gas on, don't forget we need to fill the unit with water. If you did disconnect the pipes from the top of the unit, go ahead and reconnect those now. Then, open up the hot water tap in at least one sink or bathtub around the house. Finally, turn the cold water feed back on and let the tank fill, and carefully observe for any leaks, especially around that gas valve we just put in. If you have a large tank such as a 40-gallon here, it can take quite a while. You should hear water flowing, and you should hear air coming out from an open hot water tap. So let it keep going until water begins to flow out of the taps. Now that water is flowing, the tank is full, we can go ahead and shut off all the taps around the house and proceed with the lighting procedure. Turn on the gas and check for any leaks. I didn't show this part on camera, but a little bit of soapy water sprayed on each connection on the feed pipe will show you any leaks in the form of air bubbles. If this happens, shut off the gas immediately and either recheck everything or call a professional for help. Do not attempt to light the unit if you see air bubbles. So now you'll see me lighting my particular unit, but be sure to read the instructions for yours because they do vary. Not all of them have an electric igniter. Some of them you're going to need a match or a stick lighter. It really just depends on the unit. So follow the instructions. They should be printed right on the side of the water heater or in the manual. There may also be instructions included with your replacement gas valve. If none of that information is available, do a quick Google search of the model number of your particular water heater. Once the unit is lit and you've turned the knob up to around the hot setting and the main burner has kicked on, wait a little while, could be an hour or two, and once the flame does go out, check the water temperature around your house. Adjust your temperature knob accordingly. Don't just blindly set it to where your previous one was set, because sometimes they can vary and you don't want to scald yourself. All that's left now is to clean up your tools, wipe up any messes, and of course hit that like button. And if you like videos such as this, hit that subscribe button. I'm always putting out different videos of different projects, and there's a couple on the screen right now you might want to check out. Thanks for watching.